Okay, so I think this is working. Ladies, I'm going to try to copy this link and send it to you so you can stare awkwardly in my face. And I'm not going to say anything for just 1 second. All right. So I sent that to you guys. I think it should be working. All right. Okay, so I am signed on to my GChat, an email, obviously, and if someone is watching live, and you don't have to be watching live the whole time if you don't want to. If whoever is watching could just send me a quick GChat or an email and let me know that it is working, that would be wonderful. We had a little bit of trouble earlier because YouTube or Google sort of changed their settings. So I just want to make sure that everything is working. Fine. Okay. By the way, everyone, welcome to my kitchen/eating area. I've been broadcasting for a couple years now, but this is the first time I'm broadcasting in my new house. So I have a lovely brick background. I feel so like YouTuber-ish, except I don't have one of those circular lights behind me to make everything okay. I do have the light from the beautiful backyard, which is currently covered in snow and icicles. I tried my best, but there was no way to get the window reflection out from my eyes, so I'm sorry if you see some glare. But yeah, so just a quick heads up, I am home, and things are quiet here, but I did wake up this morning to a leak from my bedroom ceiling. So there may or may not be someone coming over to look at the ceiling. My brother is here, and so he is going to answer the door and deal with that when it happens. But if you hear stuff and people moving around, that's just hopefully the person coming to fix my roof. So that was a fun adventure. Great way to start the snow day. I hope you guys got to sleep in and enjoy this day a little bit. I know you probably have some assignments to do. And so for those of you who haven't had me before, I like doing these live broadcasts because it feels more like what I'd actually be doing if I was seeing you this day. And I also think that you have something to work on anyway because you have your vocabulary paragraphs to do. So don't forget about those, and make sure to check that everything's done for that for when you come in. So anyway, yeah, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Scarlet Letter in general. And this is so much fun. I feel like this is like a literary YouTube channel. Too bad I don't have like animations and graphics to talk about the Scarlet Letter. I feel like that would be very John Green of me. So unfortunately, you just have to look at my face, guys. Sorry. So we are going to be starting our first novel actually this year. So last year you read Ethan Frome, which I know you all loved so much. And this year you're gonna read a book that's, I would say, equally depressing, but in my opinion, I don't know, more manageable in terms of understanding what's happening and being a little engaged in what's happening. I like Ethan Frome, I like Edith Wharton, but it's very slow paced, very, very subtle, as you all remember. Scarlet Letter I like to describe as a Puritan, romantic episode of Maury, appropriate for Padua. There's so many things happening, and it's funny because you talk to different English teachers and literary majors, and I feel like a lot of them say, "Oh, I hate the Scarlet Letter," blah 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 blah. And I get that. I get that there are some books that people don't like to read or to teach. But guys, I actually really like this book, and I was reading about this morning in anticipation of just sort of having this conversation with you about the Scarlet Letter, and one of the descriptions actually is an official sort of discussion of the Scarlet Letter categorizes this as a romance. And I don't want you to think of it as like a romance novel, like those crazy looking ones you might pick up at like Walgreens. They used to have them on Walgreens. And I, as a kid, would look at them and be like, that's crazy. Yeah, so not like a romance novel, but like a romance. Like this is a story about a love affair, but it unfortunately happens in Puritan New England. So we're looking at 1600s. Very bad time to be involved in anything that wasn't straight-laced and like to the Bible. So yeah, just as a quick intro, like think of it as a kind of romance, and the heartbreak and the human sort of passion and suffering, unfortunately, that comes from that. I'm not trying to be cynical, guys. Like love exists and you will find it, but I'm just saying in this book, the love situation does not go according to plan. So anyway, you're welcome to chime in. This is just like an open discussion. I am not going to talk for too long. I have to do a live stream with my seniors about Hamlet around 2:45. So I just wanted to do a couple quick things, tell you a couple quick things that before I just start going into a little bit more about the background. And one is that you will need your Scarlet Letter book for class. So please make sure you have that. I'm checking that off in my notebook to make sure that everyone has theirs with their name inside of it. We will be writing on these, so it should be your copy, because we'll be like highlighting things and underlining things, and we're just going to be really practicing sort of close reading a text. And I'll tell you in class, okay, we'll underline this line, or, draw an arrow here. And I really want you to get good at close reading analysis and taking notes. If you actually, I should have brought this from my library. Darn. By library, I mean my bookshelves in my living room. I have these anthologies from my time at the University of Delaware and in grad school, and they are just like filled with marginalia. There's notes in all the margins. And this sounds so dorky, guys, but there's no surprise. I love like going back and reading stuff that I wrote down when I was 19, that my professor was telling me, just like my thoughts and sort of ideas about text. A lot of them were wrong, but some of them are really funny. And like some of these books I would like go back and forth with my friends, and we would sort of write notes like in the margins. Yep, that was my life, guys. Undergraduate Hillary, Miss Safran, was all about the marginalia. So anyway, we're going to be doing a lot of that with the Scarlet Letter, and it's not very long, just FYI. It is like 22 chapters, but it's like a teeny tiny book. So don't be intimidated by that. The other thing is the language in the Scarlet Letter is, it's from the 1850s. And so it's not necessarily like reading the Hunger Games or Harry Potter, of course. So there is something called No for Literature. And I think the link is on your haiku page. And so you're going to be able to read the original, and then kind of similar to No Fair Shakespeare, actually very similar to No Fair Shakespeare, there's a modern translation of it on the other side. Obviously, you're going to still have to read the original text, but you can read an analysis and a kind of line-by-line translation. And I think sometimes that's very helpful for people, because I do want you to understand what's happening in the novel. So the Scarlet Letter, actually, maybe I should ask this of you guys, and some of you are signed on. Can anyone tell me who wrote the Scarlet Letter and why we know this person? I'll wait to see if anyone can tell me. I can't give you a Kit Kat because I'm not physically in front of you. Guys, no one wants to say anything? Okay. So the Scarlet Letter is written by Nathaniel Hawthorne. And no surprise, he is a romantic, a transcendentalist, and at one point in time, he lived drum roll please, in Concord, Massachusetts. That's right, everybody. My favorite town in the United States of America. The hub of literary, intellectual conversation in the 1840s and 1850s. Nathaniel Hawthorne lived in Concord, and guess who he was friends with? He was friends with Emerson and Thoreau and all those wonderful people. But he was much more of a writer. He was much more of an artist, and he was a troubled one as well. So I'm not going to get into too much detail about his life, but I did want to share this really fun little story about Nathaniel Hawthorne. And he is buried in Concord, actually, and so is his wife. And his wife, Sophia, he fell in love with, and they got married, and they needed a place to live in Concord, so they actually rented the Old Manse from Ralph Waldo Emerson, which was Emerson's mansion where he wrote, it's not like a mansion, it's a big house, where he wrote all of his famous essays and stuff like that. And so Nathaniel Hawthorne and Sophia rented the house from him. And I don't know if this is something I like about them, or just like I haven't decided, but they were just married and they wrote lessons, guys. I've been doing so much of these today. They wrote notes to each other in the window panes, the glass window panes, with their wedding rings, which is vandalism, but also very sweet at the same time. So when I was there in Concord, as you all know, I was going around the house and looking, and you can see the little messages that they carved with their wedding rings in the window pane. And one of the notes is Sophia writing about their daughter who was just born, and in the winter time, and it's really sweet and also really crazy at the same time. So Nathaniel Hawthorne was more of a dark romantic, so not maybe as dark as Poe, but certainly someone who was focusing on the human experience and the human heart and suffering and things like that. But I really want you to understand with this book, and we'll talk more about this later too, is that it's a product of, so we've all learned at this point that Hawthorne existed in his transcendentalist movement, and in a time period in which things were changing, mindsets were changing. There was women's rights movements, and for the women's right to vote, suffragists, and there was abolitionist movement. Major communities and pockets of America are starting to become more and more adamant about ending slavery, and so times were really changing. And this actually comes out as a very 1850 and very pivotal time in American history. And so Hawthorne is a part of that. But what's even more interesting, which I love about Hawthorne, is that his family, he's from Salem, Massachusetts, and he feels this intense guilt because his ancestor was one of the people that tried the Salem witches, legit ancestor who condemned those women to die. And his ancestor never repented, never said what he did was wrong. And so Hawthorne not only is part of this transcendentalist movement, but he's also constantly looking back into the past and this Puritan past and feeling this connection to an ancestor who did something so wrong. And so it's not hard to see why he sets the Scarlet Letter in Puritan New England, but it's infused with 1850s America. And that's one of the things I love most about this story. And it's sad, but it's also really empowering. This woman, Hester Prynne, goes through a lot of stuff as a result of being ostracized and punished by her community, but she handles it, guys. I mean, she does handle it. And so I just think this is going along with the theme of transcendentalism and all the women that you guys researched, Elizabeth Peabody and Louisa May Alcott. And I just think it's so nice to be able to look at a novel and really talk about a woman I mean, I know this novel is written by a man, but it's part of the canoning, and it still enables us to talk about strength and this idea of Hester Prynne as a heroine. Now, really quick, a lot of you, when you think of the Scarlet Letter, might think about a couple things. Some of you might think about Easy A, that movie with Emma Stone, which I know is really funny, but has like nothing to do with this book, just so we're all clear. Maybe like a little teeny bit to do with this book, but not as much. And there's like random sort of pop culture references to the Scarlet Letter. I kind of feel like there might have been a Gossip Girl theme relating to this at one point, but I can't remember. So we're kind of all familiar with the idea like the red letter A or like the adulteress, but there is a lot more to it than that, obviously. So I encourage you tonight, look at your book. I mean, if some of you might have it at school, it's definitely available online. And try to read the preface by Nathaniel Hawthorne to the Scarlet Letter, and also just Wikipedia it, Google it, like look up the Scarlet Letter, look up adaptations, look on YouTube. There's a really terrible movie version with Demi Moore, which we will never watch. There's also a really random 80s adaptation with this woman who has the bluest eyes I've ever seen. They are crazy. I will show you this clip in class and you will understand what I'm talking about. Like literally when she's on the screen, you just look at her like she's possessed. But yeah, like just look it up, look at No for Literature, look at some of the themes and things, and just, give yourself a brief introduction to the Scarlet Letter. But just so we're all clear, it starts, it's in Puritan New England. So it was written in 1850, but it's set in Puritan New England. And this is a time that we've learned about at the beginning of the year, which is very strict. Puritans left England for America because they felt like the Catholic Church, was not adhering to the sort of the strict religious doctrine that it should be. And so they came to this new land, but they also, brought with them very strict morals, and the church was the law. So even though there were, governors and, trials and lawyers and things like that, it's still all very much tied with this firm idea of like what is right, what is wrong, what is a sin, and what is good. So that's all it plays a major role in what happens to these main characters. So obviously Hester Prynne is one of the main characters. I don't want to give away too much. And then there's Reverend Dimmesdale, and there's Roger Chillingworth, and then there's Hester Prynne's daughter, Pearl. And I just wanted to give you a little tidbit to whet your appetite, which is that in the very beginning of this book, Hester Prynne is in jail, or leaving jail, and she is pregnant, but she is not married. Okay, she's technically married, but her husband is not in the picture, and he is not the father of her child, guys. So craziness ensues. And this whole book really becomes a sort of Mari-esque, like, who's the daddy? But in a very beautiful, intellectual, depressing, sometimes hopeful kind of way. But yeah, that's just a brief introduction into the Scarlet Letter, and I just thought I would stop for a minute and see if anyone wants to share like any knowledge they have of the Scarlet Letter, or like any images they have in their mind, or like movie adaptations, or if you have any questions. I also want to stop in and give you this moment to ask me any questions about anything else that's due for the end of the quarter and things like that. So let me pause for a moment. I hope this is working, by the way, because I didn't receive any messages from anyone. It's so beautiful out, guys. Talk about nature and Thoreau and Emerson. I know it's cold, but if you get a chance, like step outside today and just go for like a litlittle walk. Don't slip though. If I'm looking outside, like There's a lot of trees in my backyard, and all of them are like covered in white, and there's icicles dripping down everywhere, and it's really pretty. Um, there's actually like a clothesline next door, and there's icicles all across the clothesline. I've been looking for wildlife, but I do not see any animals. Okay, so I'm not seeing any questions, which is totally fine. But I just did want to remind you again to work on your vocab paragraphs. Make sure they are printed out and in MLA format. And that will be the last thing that goes in along with your speech grade for the quarter. And you're welcome to come visit me and talk about anything that you want to talk about. Your speeches have been going really well. I'm very proud of all of you. And if you haven't gone yet, today is a great day to practice in front of the mirror or in front of your family or siblings who are sitting there not doing anything except being on their phones. Am I right? So yeah, and don't forget to bring your Scarlet Letter book. I am excited to start talking about this book. We'll be reading it a couple of chapters at a time. And like I said, you're welcome to go on Know For Your Literature and use some of the links that are on Haiku. But yeah, we're starting a new chapter, pun intended, going into Scarlet Letter. And before you know it, guys, this year will be over. It is moving fast. So email me with any questions or G-chat me, and I hope you enjoyed this brief, albeit exciting, live stream about the Scarlet Letter. Bye, everyone.